So apparently the Red Sox are not only going to be worse than last year, they're going to be much worse. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Sea Radio. My name is Corbin, and thank you very much for clicking on this video. Today, we're going over One Source's projections for the 2025 season, why they're so negative on the Boston Red Sox. Plus, we're going to compare this to some of the other projections out there and try and figure out which one's more realistic. And obviously, we have to start by talking about the projection itself. PECOTA yesterday, from Baseball Prospectus, which is a reputable source. This is a legitimate algorithm that they've created, that they've used for a very long time, not only projected that our Boston Red Sox are going to be worse than they were in 2024 with a projected record of 79 and 83, but they are going to be dead last in the AL East by 11 games out of first place in the New York Yankees and 3 games comfortably in last place away from fourth place Tampa Bay Rays. Right off the bat, I hate this projection, not because I'm a Red Sox fan, because it just simply doesn't make any sense to me. You look at where this division ended up last year with the Toronto Blue Jays having a negative record, the Rays having a negative record, and both of those teams coming into 2025 and being significantly better than they were in 2024. How does that make sense, especially looking at what they've done this offseason? Yes, the Blue Jays added Anthony Santander, but they haven't really made any truly meaningful additions outside of that. Max Scherzer's like 45 years old? He wasn't very great last season. Unless they're projecting him to be a Cy Young candidate, which would be absurd, I don't understand where this came from. They did sign Jeff Hoffman, but he also failed 2 physicals before he even ended up on the Toronto Blue Jays, yet somehow they are going to go from 74 wins in 2024 to 84 wins in 2025. They're 10 wins better. That makes no sense to me. Even the Tampa Bay Rays, they are constantly a sneaky good team somehow, some way, but even they this year, I just don't see how you could project that this lineup, the Red Sox lineup, is going to be worse than a Tampa Bay lineup, who right now their 5-hole hitter is Danny Jansen. On top of that, their bullpen has only 2 guys with more than a year of service time and a bunch of guys who've never played Major League Baseball before. And they did have one of the worst bullpens in baseball last year as well. How are they projected to continue to get better while the Red Sox continue to fall down? Even looking at the Baltimore Orioles projections here, the Orioles got worse this offseason. Yes, they got Tyler O'Neill, but that's 100 games versus Anthony Santander, who played most of a season, hit more home runs. They lost Corbin Burns and brought in Charlie Morton, and yet somehow the Red Sox, who made legitimate improvements to their team, is projected to be worse. Make it make sense, PECOTA. It doesn't make sense at all. But we are going to dive into this a little bit deeper and try and figure out, hey, why do they think that the Red Sox are going to be this bad? Now, they don't have, at least unless you pay for it, trust me, I'm not paying to have the Red Sox pooed all over for no reason, have a real legitimate summary as to what they ended up doing, but they did give us a bit of a snippet of what they ended up basing these projections off of, and I gotta say, there are a lot of things I disagree with. Starting with the starting pitching projections for this team, there's one thing that immediately stands out, and that is that they believe that not a single Red Sox pitcher is going to throw, or starter I should say, is going to throw more than 150 innings this season. The only pitcher that they are projecting to throw 150 or more innings this season out of the rotation is Tanner Houck. Right off the bat, again, this makes no sense to me. One, because 3 starters for the Boston Red Sox had more than 150 innings last season. So you're telling me none of these guys are going to be able to repeat what they did last year, the bare minimum innings-wise in 2025. On top of that, yeah, there's some injury history with the rest of the rotation, but there's an injury history with basically every rotation in Major League Baseball. Crochet is fully healthy and ready to go. He has no leash, projecting him to pitch 129 innings throughout the 2025 season feels to me like they're wildly undervaluing. It feels like a worst-case scenario type situation. Walker Buehler is fully healthy and ready to go. Projecting him for under 150 innings to me feels like a worst-case scenario. Giolito, okay, fine, right? He's coming off of an injury. He hasn't pitched a full season in about a year. This will be his second year removed from that injury. Okay, I can understand that. And even if they go with a 6-man rotation, I still think some of these guys are going to have at least 150 innings on the season. To me, projecting out that this rotation isn't going to be able to get enough innings to be a successful baseball team feels like a wild under-evaluation of who this Red Sox team could be. On top of that, looking at this starting rotation, are projecting that they're going to average about 5 innings a game. Again, that doesn't make a ton of sense to me. Last year, yes, they did average about that. Yes, that was a big problem, but coming into this year, you've got Walker Buehler, who, when healthy, pitches a lot of innings. You've got Garrett Crochet, who, again, should be able to give you more than 5 innings a start. Tanner Houck's the only one who's close to 6 innings on here. I believe Cutter Crawford and Brian Bayo are going to be pushed to be more impact players on a game-to-game basis, and by that, being able to go longer than 5 innings. It just feels like this is such an undervaluation of what this Red Sox rotation could look like. It feels like this projection's looking at absolute worst case scenario for this rotation and not trying to fit the mean. I just feel like this rotation was wildly undervalued, and I think that's a big reason why you're looking at the projections the way it is. Now, on top of this, you got to look at everything else, right? We got to look at the bullpen. We got to look at the starting position player side of things. Let's start with the bullpen, and I actually don't hate the bullpen projections in this one. There are some things that drive me a little bit crazy. First off, they believe that Chapman will get 40% of the save opportunities this year. I don't think that is going to happen at this point with his age and his production out of the closing spot over the last few years. The Red Sox did not bring him into close games. My guess is if it's not Hendricks, it's going to be Slayton. So him getting 40% of the saves in this projection are probably bringing down your win total a little bit. Another thing that rubs me the wrong way is the fact that they believe Garrett Whitlock is going to throw 46 innings this year. That is 12 less than Josh Winkowski is going to get. Again, something I just simply don't see happening for the Red Sox. Garrett Whitlock is going to play a big role in this Red Sox bullpen, and for him to be projected to be less impactful than Josh Winkowski, yeah, that just doesn't make sense, especially because they project them to be in a similar role, right? If they said, no, Whitlock we project is going to be a closer or he's going to be a setup man, fine, I understand the lack of innings, but they're projecting him to have the same role as Josh Winkowski, but pitch less innings. That makes absolutely no sense in my mind. Outside of that, yeah, all I can take away from this is just sort of the projected time that each player is going to get on the mound this year, and I can't really argue with a lot of it. I think a lot of it does make some sense. So bullpen, okay, right? But there are still some big things that stand out to me as someone who has religiously covered and talked about the Red Sox for the last year, that just simply, if you took the time and looked at it, don't make any sense logically. On the position player side of things, yeah, it's real interesting. I got some big gripes with this one as well. First and foremost, the Red Sox will have a total of 6 second basemen in 2025. Now, this is hypothetically possible. The Red Sox are loaded with middle infielders right now, and they've got a lot of guys with some talent in there as well. But my problem with that is this has been a big problem for the Red Sox, right? They've had such a revolving door at second base that it's led to an absolute black hole of defensive metrics there for the last couple of years. It's something I believe, and I think makes sense, the Red Sox are going to want to try and find a solution for this season. At the bare minimum, I think you're looking at 2 or 3 guys who are going to be a constant in that second base spot. Having 6 guys in there for even 10% of the year feels like an absolute overstretch. And what makes this even worse is that of those 6 players, a minority of those projected starts are going to come from Vaughn Grissom, who is projected to only play 49 games for the Red Sox this season, and Christian Campbell, who's projected to only play 32 games this year, only part of that at second base. Huh? Right? What are we talking about here? The 2 biggest and most impactful potential players that could play second base are not only not going to play their entire season at second base, they're going to play a minority of the games at second base. Again, you look at this and you just use common sense for 1 second and you say, wait a second, if I'm projecting out the 2025 Red Sox, I'm never going to put Vaughn Grissom and Christian Campbell as a minority stakeholder in second base, right? It just doesn't make any sense. If you took a second and looked at the roster construction and what these guys could be, these guys are absolutely going to be, at the bare minimum, in my opinion, a majority of the time played at second base. And then there are some really little things in here that I think are absolutely ridiculous. Romy Gonzalez is projected to get 10% of his at-bats in left field. What? Right? Why? Why is he going to play left field? I don't know. He's only played 7 major league games in left field in his entire career. The Red Sox have Ceddanne Rafaela, have Masataka Yoshida, have Willie Abreu, have Jaron Duran, have Roman Anthony, who, by the way, is only projected to play about 50 games this season as well, and Rob Refsnyder. But somehow, of those 7 players, Romy Gonzalez is the one who's going to be the backup to left field. Again, it just doesn't make any sense. They are projecting that Trevor Story's only playing 120 games this season. Masa's only playing about 130 games this season, which could be realistic, and I'm not going to gripe them too much on projecting Trevor Story to not have a full season, right? I think a lot of people are projecting that, but you look at all of this and you put it all together and you say, well, wait a second here. How does this make any sense? The Red Sox have publicly said now they are going to be relying on these young, high-ceiling prospects to make an impact on their team, but for some reason, PECOTA said, no, they're not, right? They're not doing that. They're only going to play combined 100 games this season, and the Red Sox are going to piece together the rest of this lineup and whatever without these players in there. They're not going to get called up. I mean, this is what I'm assuming they're assuming, right? Because the only way that they play 50 games is if they get called up at the end of August. Again, doesn't make sense to me. If you're going to call these guys up, it's going to be early on in the season to make a legitimate impact, but we're just completely ignoring that possibility. I look at all of this and I'm like, oh my God, right? None of this really makes sense for where the Red Sox truly are at. It genuinely feels like PECOTA just sort of looked at their roster depth on Fangraphs and just made up projected times and places these players are going to play. I don't know. I don't know how a mathematical equation came to these guys not being an impact and having the starters pitch less than 150 innings. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And what makes this even more confusing is that you look at every other current projection for the Red Sox. Specifically, I'm talking about sports betting here. If you look at sports books right now, literally every single one has the Red Sox around 84, 85 wins, with the favorite being on the over for the Red Sox 2025 season. So how is it possible that PECOTA is 6 or 7 wins less than what these guys are projecting? That makes no sense to me. There's no connection here in my mind as to how the Red Sox get to this point. The only thing I could think of is, again, you're looking at absolute worst case scenario for the Red Sox, right? Garrett Whitlock clearly gets injured. Buehler clearly gets injured. Giolito can't perform. Christian Campbell, Roman Anthony, Vaughn Grissom, these guys aren't ready for Major League Baseball. You're looking at Romy Gonzalez. So many injuries that Romy Gonzalez ends up in the outfield, like Christian Arroyo in 2023. But the problem with that hypothetical situation is that every other team in the AL East, you're looking at their best case scenario, right? The best case scenario for the Blue Jays this year is that they are a competitive, legitimate team. The best case scenario for the Rays this year is that they are a legitimate, competitive team. Hell, even the Orioles, the best case scenario here is that they're a legitimate, competitive team. But the Red Sox, these guys, no. They don't get best case scenario. They get worst possible case scenario. I'll tell you which one I believe is more realistic, and it's not just because I'm a Red Sox fan. It's because I broke down these projections and they make absolutely no sense. Sports books tend to not like to lose, right? Sportsbooks make these with the understanding and mathematical equations that they are going to make money off of these. So the fact that these guys are all the way up at 84, 85, 86 wins, and PECOTA is all the way down at 77, 78, 79 wins, yeah, it lends me to believe that the guys who make money off of them being correct is going to be more accurate than PECOTA, but I don't know, man. Maybe it was just a Yankee fan, right? Maybe the person who created this happens to be a diehard Yankee fan, and they can't stand the idea of the Red Sox being better this year than they were last year. But I'll tell you what, this is the pessimistic of pessimistic takes. Even for the biggest pessimist that watches this video, you have to agree that this looks a little bit ridiculous. Even if we're just talking about the Red Sox didn't get significantly better than last year, they got better. right? On paper, they are a better team than they were last year. They are a healthier team. They are a more put together team, especially in the rotation, especially on the pitching side of things. And that simply cannot equate to a worse season on paper coming into 2025 than it does last year. I just simply can't wrap my head around that idea. And I don't think a lot of you guys can either, but I do want your opinions. After I broke this whole thing down, do you agree with PECOTA? I hope you don't, because I think that means you're not paying attention. But why do you think PECOTA is so down on the 2025 Red Sox? What do you think their reasoning is truly behind them being the worst team in the AL East and one of the worst teams in the AL in general? Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section down below. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor. Make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. It just simply helps out a ton, and it's the best way to let me know you're enjoying the content. Don't forget, if you guys want to listen instead of watch these episodes, all you got to do is head over to your favorite podcasting app and look up Red Seat Radio. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the Red Seats.